says off. There we go, live.
There we go.
Okay.
We're live. Woohoo!
Okay, first of all,
All
can you
right.
tell, Deborah, I need to ask you a question.
Sure.
Can you tell that I'm in a closet?
Well, I was wondering about that, Sean. Now that you mention it,
I
are you
have a
going to tell
little
us
back.
why you're in a closet before we even introduce ourselves? Are you going to tell us why you're in a closet?
This is my office.
You are in a closet. That's
My
your
office.
office. How cool.
It's very small. It's very awesome. It's right in the closet, but not in.
I love that.
Yeah.
You're in a closet. I'm in a basement that doubles as an aviary. You'll hear my birds behind me
I
talking.
have heard your birds. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just, certain birds, there's just no way to quite shut them up. You kind of, when in Rome. Well, anyway, let's introduce ourselves, Sean. Why don't we do that? I'm Deborah Ivanoff, emotional rebalance coach with Answering the Sacred, and I help men get more clarity, confidence, and money in their businesses. Sean, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Sean Harry, and I like to say that I help people, I help small business owners turn their wildest dreams into reality. So I'm a small business coach, and I do the full service coaching for small businesses. Primarily, I focus on marketing and how do you get your message out there, what makes you unique, and why would somebody want to buy your stuff.
Fantastic. And you are an author, which is why we decided we were going to get in touch and do this. You have a book launch. Why don't you tell people about your book launch?
Well, I just published a book called The Best Little Marketing Plan, and it's so brand new that it has not even been launched to the public yet. I mean, we've sold a few copies, but we haven't really gotten it into the hands of folks yet. The Best Little Marketing Plan is a very small, concise marketing plan, book that will help small business owners. Within an hour, you can read the book, take the concepts, and begin your marketing plan. Because small business owners don't have a lot of time. So we're doing a book launch this weekend, and it's just a lot of fun. I'm excited about it.
Fantastic, fantastic. So why don't we tell people what our topic is today and how we came, just really briefly, and tell them how we came about the idea to do a Google Hangout on this topic.
Sure. Well, we're calling this 5 things to do your business, to get your business stuff together. So 5 things to do to get your business stuff together. And stuff, it can be really messy. So we're coming at it from a couple of different directions. You come at it from one direction, I come at it from another direction. But our goal is really to help small business owners to take some of that stress away, to give them some peace of mind, to allow them to go take a vacation or something like that.
What?
Right? Yes.
Enjoy what they do and take a vacation?
We need to take vacations and rest and relax and enjoy life, because why are we in this if we're not going to enjoy life, right?
I agree. Well, that's fantastic. I think we should just get started, and then we can tell people how to get in touch with us. Does that sound good?
Absolutely.
So what I remember, Sean, is that we were having this conversation, and we said, oh my gosh, this is such a cool conversation. We should turn this into something, and then we should share it. And I know that one of my big things, because it's been one of my big struggles to learn, is how to become what I call financially literate.
Yeah.
To just get the very basics. And that goes for business as well. There's so many moving pieces. And we started talking about what are the basic things. Before I was always running around trying to do calculus, and I didn't even know how to multiply and divide. So we started talking about what are the very, very basic things. That's how I remember we got started on this conversation. And then we said 5 things, and it turned into 5 different areas. So
5 different areas with at least 5 different things each in each area.
But isn't that the way in business? You can't really, if you say 3 tips, someone's lying.
It's called scope creep, and we want to try to not have scope creep most of the time, but in this one we allowed it. So
yes, absolutely.
As I was listening to you back then, I remembered that you were talking about something that my clients really struggle with when it comes to their business finances. a lot of times we start talking about a balance sheet or a P&L or something, and the eyes sort of glaze over.
Yeah.
And because people have this kind of relationship with money, I guess that you would call it, that is a bit of a challenge. And so I think it is a critical place to start when you want to get your business stuff together, to be thinking about finances and money. And so that's kind of your area to help people with. Why don't you tell us what you know about that?
Well, here's the interesting thing, Sean. I find people running around trying to get rich quick, but they don't even know the absolute basics. And I was one of them. And I'm just learning. I'm taking baby steps now. And because I'm learning about those baby steps, I'm really realizing how important it is to take those baby steps.
Yeah.
So that's where we first even started, is there's baby steps in business as well. But when I look at finances and I think about baby steps, I think about the very first step is to have this willingness to wake up. Because most of us, like you said, the glaze over, most of us are walking around in this unconscious place for what? Many reasons. I'm going to say a lot of that reason is because we don't have the skill and we just don't feel good. Who wants to go do something they don't feel good or capable or even possible about?
Yeah, I think a lot of
Go ahead.
I think a lot of small business owners do have they just don't feel good about their relationship with money or how they use money in their business.
Well, who taught us? Nobody taught us. In fact, if you go to school and you take economics or something, you still don't know. Not really.
All I learned in economics is supply and demand, and they have these charts, and even I think the economists don't know what that's all about.
Well, they totally don't, because one says this and one says that, and it could be either, it's a lot of space in the middle. So that's the first step. I know I'm breaking it down to something really, really simple, but I'm breaking it down to something really, really simple because I realized that that's what I needed. It needed to be that simple.
Yeah.
So waking up, undoing the glaze, undoing the fog, undoing the confusion, becoming like willing and determined to confront the financial situation and make a difference. I think that's the first step.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second step, across the board. So I did a lot of studying. I've been reading a lot of different books, and I've been doing a lot of studying. And what I've been looking for is what it comes down to that everybody agrees on. So that's one thing. You got to wake up. Like it or not, you have to wake up. Number two, there is no getting around being conscious about what. Sorry. Yeah. Wake up. There's no getting around having to be conscious and about your spending. So you have to track your spending in some way, even if it's just writing it down on a piece of paper, although I wouldn't recommend that manner. There's others that work much better. But that's the thing. You have to track your spending. You have to know what's coming in and going out. And for some of us, like me, I will say for me, I have to look every single day.
Yeah.
It's too much to hold in my head. And it's too easy for me in my fantasy mind to think I have more time, more money, more business, that kind of thing. So tracking our spending is just so, I know it sounds basic. People want it to be this other really cool thing. And I hate to say it, but it's not this really cool thing. You got to do your laundry. You got to track your spending. You got to wash the dishes if you want clean ones. You got to take out the trash. You got to do your spending. It's just basic stuff.
Yeah.
And then the next thing, and this does get more to the fun part, but you can't get to the fun part if you don't at least know what's going on, if you're not awake to what's happening in your own financial house. But the third thing is creating a money vision. It's not creating a budget. That's like saying going on a diet. We all know diets don't work, and yet we keep spending money on them. Who's winning in the diet world, I wonder? Same thing in the financial world.
Those are the guys that are winning.
That's right. And there's people who are proponents of budgeting. But budgeting, I won't say it doesn't work, because it does work for some people, but I want to offer that an alternative for people who budgeting doesn't work for them because it makes them feel in denial, and then they start looking at what they don't have, and they start feeling really constricted and not choice. So a money vision is an alternative to that, knowing what it is you do want. Once you've tracked your spending and you know what you do want, and you're really clear about your vision around money, now you're at choice. You can make choices about the money that you do have. And I personally have found this so much more empowering than I've tried. So many times I've tried to budget, and it just, day 3 and it's out the window. That's about how long I get, about 3 days. But having a money vision and getting excited about what I do want, that I can stick with, and it's led to all these other things that have to do with, how I tackle my debts and whittle those down because of what I'm going to be doing next, and so it's very much more energizing. I think the 4th thing is clearing debt. Ooh, don't like that one. But I know, right? I know. But the thing is that I've heard a number of speakers say this who aren't even in the growth and development or the woo-woo stage at all, but they say debt is a sign of unforgiveness.
Wow.
Inside and out. Debt is something inside and out. And that we must forgive ourselves first and make our financial amends in the world to clear the idea or the issue of debt. And I think there's something valid with that, because when I started looking at that and I started becoming more compassionate and more understanding with myself, more gentle but still firm with myself, I stopped accumulating debt and I started managing and clearing the debt, for sure. So I think there's something really valid in that. I don't know, what is it, does that seem like a new concept to you, Sean, when I say that?
No, it's not a new concept. It's actually so true. You know, debt can tend to weigh us down, particularly when it's a kind of debt that we've carried around for a long, long time. I mean, not all debt is negative, right?
Right, absolutely.
Some debt is just, it signals that we have made a commitment and a promise to something. And then the debt helps us to keep that commitment and that promise. But I think a lot of small businesses have debt that is just weighing them down, and getting rid of that is going to be very, very helpful and important.
What do you think? Do you think if people were to let themselves off the hook, not in terms of like not dealing with the debt, that's not what I'm talking about, but if they were able to say, yes, I made a mistake, I could have done better, but I didn't know then, I'm going to release myself from the shame and blame, and I'm just going to deal with the situation, you think they would be able to deal with the situation and get that cleared out sooner?
Well, I do, and even more importantly, I think when they are able to look at that stuff, they're able to make better decisions in the future. You know, because if you have debt, you want to make sure that it is the right kind of debt and it's for the right things. Because, like I say, debt in and of itself is not a bad thing.
Well, that's where the money vision comes in, right?
Right.
That's where the vision comes in.
Right.
So you know why.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a shocking concept to me, this concept of, I mean, I've heard teachers actually say all debt is unforgiveness not given.
Wow.
And I was pretty surprised by that. But as I began playing around with the possibility of that, I noticed it made a difference. So I would just encourage people to, you know, keep it as a possibility.
Absolutely.
And,
yeah.
Go ahead. And then, you know, the fifth thing in this one area of finances is, and there's just no going around this, and again, this is this area that has just been so challenging for me, Sean, is the pay yourself first, is to be your own bank. Even to the point of, you know, self-insuring, you know, putting money aside, rather than, you know, there's this theory that if you're putting money into an insurance company, you kind of want that to pay off, which means you're kind of bringing something to you that you don't really want. It can get kind of funny. But if you self-insure over and above, if you're putting money aside and you're really clear, here's your money vision, I'm putting it aside, so if something does come up that I didn't see, maybe the washer or, you know, the refrigerator, then think of all the money I'm saving because I'm not pulling out a credit card and I'm not putting on a credit, but also how good I feel. I just feel more connected to my life. So there's that self-insurance part, there's that paying yourself first, there's the different tiers of savings, and I don't know how for everyone, but for me, most of my life I lived just paycheck to paycheck, month to month, and I've learned how to do that. That was
Mm-hmm.
comfortable for me. So that was my
Mm-hmm.
comfort zone. And whenever I put money aside, inevitably I found something that needed it. So it's been a real shift to actually be able to put money aside and leave it there and be comfortable with it and to know why I did it. That goes back to that money visioning. But from what I've been studying, and I can't say I have as huge of an experience as I'd like in that, but I'd love to hear you weigh in on this. It just does seem that when we become conscious spenders and conscious savers through our money vision, that we're much more at peace with money, that we're much happier in our lives. And that's basic finance right there. What I just said, 5 steps, basic finance. And what I find is that people are trying to do the advanced and they don't have the foundation of the basics. So that's all I'm focusing on right now, is just the basics in my own life and in my business.
Well, good. Well, I do agree with you on those 5 steps, particularly that last one. A lot of solopreneurs and people who are small business owners will pay themselves last and try to stretch the dollar and make things last. And a lot of times they don't even take a paycheck for themselves, and they're operating out of this mentality of I don't have enough. And that is no way to live life, but that is absolutely no way to run a business. Because in business you have to plan ahead, you have to have some contingencies, you have to make do with what you've got, and you've got to take care of yourself. If you are a business owner,
since we're talking about, I know marketing's up next, we're talking about it. When you see that in a business where someone's just getting by in a business and maybe the business owner isn't taking a paycheck or they're taking part of a paycheck, it seems to me like that's a symptom of something. Would you say that is a symptom of not having a marketing plan? Because that's been pointed out to me in the past, so I'm wondering if you see it that way.
Well, I think it is a symptom of not having a marketing plan. Oftentimes it's a symptom of some of these other things that we're going to talk about as well. Not having systems and processes in place, not being focused enough, not having a sales strategy. There are a lot of things that it's symptomatic of, and one of the things that I try to do when I work with people is to figure out what is it exactly that's going on. If they're not paying themselves, what is that about?
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of reasons why people don't pay themselves. I mean, sometimes people don't need to pay themselves because they have somebody else providing for them they can live on, and they're putting that money back into the business. They're reinvesting it. So
Gotcha.
That's not necessarily a bad thing, but what we have to find out is why are they not paying themselves? And I encourage people to actually sit down, even if you're a sole proprietor, the money's all yours, sit down and write a check to yourself, sign it, and hand it to yourself like, here's payday, and then celebrate. One of the things that we don't do with money is we tend to not celebrate that its place in our life, and then it somehow takes ownership over us rather than the other way around.
That feels so good. I'm gonna try that. That's fantastic. Love that.
Yeah. Hey, write yourself a check, Deborah.
Write myself a big old check. Well, that's a funny thing is all the accounts, things have gotten so abstract, right? All the accounts are connected. You're just transferring things back and forth. You don't have that little, you don't feel the paper. You don't walk it to the bank. You don't have that interaction with someone who says, hey, yeah. So, it's finding that for ourselves. It's reinventing that for ourselves so that we do have that pride and ownership in our businesses. Well, I want to talk a little bit about marketing because that is just an area, that's another one of those areas. No, people don't make me do marketing. Oh, no. And, you seem like someone who has a lot of fun with marketing and has fun with marketing and your clients, and I'd like to know a little bit about marketing, and that's another one of these areas to get your business stuff together. Just like I said, I went back to the basics. What do you think are the basics in marketing that every business person just has to have?
Well, so I do have a list of basics, but let me start by saying why I think people shy away from marketing. Particularly small business owners. It's because in our culture we are taught not to talk about ourselves, not to boast, not to put ourselves out there too much. But that's not marketing. I mean, we all know that guy who, when he walks in the door, or that gal when they walk in the door, and everybody kind of cringes, and I know he's going to try and sell me something. The sort of, that push marketer, or the pushy salesperson. We all don't want to. Nobody wants to be that way, so we tend to shy away from it. I get a lot of people who say to me, "Well, I just don't want to. I don't like to sell myself."
Mm-hmm.
But the first thing
I hear that all the time. I hear that all the time, in particular from coaches, from dancers, from artists. If I could just do what I do and I didn't have to do anything else. That's kind of a mythology, isn't it?
Well, and the way that I start by addressing that is I tell them, okay, look, first of all, in this state, we live in Oregon. In this state, it's illegal to sell yourself. and there's even, you can't even sell parts of yourself on eBay, right? You can't sell.
God, please don't put that in the minds of anybody. Oh my goodness! Someone somewhere has thought of how to do that. That's a scary thought.
Yeah. It's not about selling ourselves. It's actually about offering what we have to people who need it. And I've been rereading Michael Port's book, Book Yourself Solid. And this morning I came over this quote that I was like, yep, I need to remind myself of that, and so do all my clients. He said, we have a moral obligation to offer our services to people who need them. And that's a pretty serious deal, right?
Yeah, that's a pretty serious deal.
It's serious. I mean, if somebody needs what you have to offer and you don't offer it to them, that's very bad. I have a story coming up that I'll share with you about how I got that into the mind of one of my clients.
Good. I want to hear it. I think people appreciate that.
So when it comes to marketing and getting back to basics, I think there are at least 5 things, but let's focus on these 5. The first is, do not be afraid to narrow your niche or your niche, depending on how you say it, right?
If you're in France or if you're somewhere else.
Whatever you do, focus it. Focus it. And I have a colleague, Jackie Babicki-Peterson, who says, take your niche, and take it deep. Focus it very, very narrow and take it deep. The challenge is for small business owners, and particularly those who are just getting started, is we tend to think that everybody is my customer, or everybody. That's right. I can help anybody, right?
That's right.
The reality is we can't. We can't help everybody, and we can't just help somebody. We help very specific people. We serve people, individuals, small businesses, that kind of thing. So take your niche, and narrow it. That's the first thing. And then the second thing I think that is so important for us to remember when it comes to marketing and sales is that, Deborah, it's not about us. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's not about our product or our service. It's about our customers. It's about them.
God, so imagine if everybody really got that part, Sean. Imagine how that would change things. Seriously.
Oh, yeah. And, I think in reality that is one of the important benefits of being a small business, is that we can make it very personal to our clients and to our customers, to the other people, right?
That's what I enjoy about being a solopreneur, is that I actually get that connection.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it when we're able to focus on the other person, then marketing becomes rather easy, because it's about offering what we have to somebody who needs it, right?
That's right.
And like Michael Port says, if we don't do that, we are not fulfilling our moral obligation. I think a third thing that is really helpful in marketing is, again, this kind of goes against what we're taught all of our life. We're taught not to play favorites, but what I would say is one of the basic things that we need to do is to play favorites. Figure
Say
out
more about that. Yeah.
Well, figure out who your favorite customers are, the people that you enjoy working with the most, the people who you can really help the most, and go find more just like them. You know, don't worry about trying to force people who really don't need your stuff or who really don't even like you. You know, stop trying to force them to be your customers.
I've seen people do that. We're laughing about it, but I've seen people do that. And no one wins.
I've done it. I've done it myself. I'll
I probably have done it too. And
I'm sure. Yeah. But there are people who love what we do and who need us. Play favorites and go find more just like them. Get to know them intimately. Get inside their head. Offer them more and more things that can really help them. And people appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
The fourth thing is to understand, I think it's really important to understand about marketing and sales and customer service and, you know, all of that, and how those things relate to each other. So when I teach the classes, I teach that there's a customer relationship arc, right? And so the people come into our customer relationship arc at the very beginning, and that has to do with awareness. Marketing gets them there. As they get closer to the top of the arc, then they come into your sales channel or your sales funnel or whatever you want to call it, right? And at the very apex, the very top of the arc, is this sort of special thing that happens that in business has a very technical term. We call it the sale. So that's where people come from being a potential customer into becoming a customer, right? And then everything after the sale has to do with delivering your product, customer service, you know, taking care of people. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that's so important to understand is that marketing in and of itself is the beginning of that arc, right? So in marketing, you want to catch people's attention. You want to plant a little seed in their mind so that they remember you when they need you. And then you can pull them through that arc through some kind of a sales process until the sale is made, and then into the whole customer service and taking care of them.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty key concept that a lot of people don't think about, and they really need to.
I think it's that being asleep to it and not really understanding the process of what, like you said, there's this arc. Like they don't really understand what leads up to this very precious moment, and then really what completes the precious moment so that it can happen again.
Right. And that's where we get confused. Sometimes we'll meet somebody who has potential need of our service, and we want to start providing them service.
Just jump. Yeah.
And then what happens is we usually scare them away, right?
Yeah, it's happened to me. I've felt that way about people that weren't taking the time to do the little dance before the big dance, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
I have a couple of clients who are younger, and they're in that age where they're thinking about, you know, starting a family or finding a significant other, that kind of thing. Whenever I talk to them about this concept, frequently they'll say, well, it's kind of like dating, right? You know, I wouldn't walk into a bar and see somebody across the room and, you know, go right up to them and say, hey, let's get married. That would
have a baby.
It would scare them away, right? But you can walk over to them and say, hey, I'd like to get to know you a little bit more, which is really what marketing is. It's Here's what I
Mhm.
have to offer. Why don't you come and learn more about who we are? So that's an important piece about marketing. And then I would say that the fifth thing about marketing that is really critical to helping people get their business stuff together um,
Yes.
is the concept of branding. Um,
Ah, yeah, we hear a lot about branding. Speak to us of branding, Sean. We hear a
well,
lot about that.
yeah, and a lot of times we think about huge companies. When we think about brands, we think about huge companies, Coca-Cola and Nike, and the
Yes.
huge companies.
Yes.
And the reality is, a brand is not just for those big guys. A brand is also for those of us who have smaller businesses, who have independent practices. And if you think about the concept of the brand, it's not about my brand is not about me. My brand
Hmm.
is so that my customers can find me. Okay, so
Mm.
my customers are out there and they're getting bombarded with thousands. I think somewhere around 3 or 4 thousand brand images every single day,
Ugh,
right? Which
that
sounds
sounds
like a lot.
exhausting.
Well, it sounds like
It
a
does
lot,
sound like a lot.
but I'm sitting here, looking at a computer, and I have a Samsung microphone here and an Apple computer, and we're on Google Plus, and I mean, just sitting in my office environment at my desk, there are probably 50 different brand messages staring me in the face right at the moment, right?
Mm.
So really,
Yeah.
thousands a day.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking
So the
around.
reason we brand ourselves, or we brand our business, is so that our customers can find us. Okay, so they know that they're looking for our logo, our brand, our promise to the community, and when they see that, they think of us.
Hmm.
So branding yourself is extremely important. It's not important for you, but it's important for your customers to find you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's
Wow.
one of
So
the
go ahead.
go ahead,
No,
go
go ahead,
ahead,
Sean.
Deborah.
I was just kind of letting some of that settle in, sort of the very beginnings of financial, the very beginnings of marketing. I'm kind of thinking most business people, myself included, are always being lured by these clever forms of marketing, even of branding. We don't even have those very beginning foundational pieces again.
Right,
We
right.
really need to be working on those foundational pieces. Would you not say that's true?
It's all true. It's all about the very basics. I love to tell a story about Vince Lombardi when he took over the Green Bay Packers.
Mm-hmm.
Vince Lombardi took over the Green Bay Packers, and they had only won 2 games out of, I think, 12 or 15 games the prior year. And it wasn't because they weren't good athletes. I mean, these guys played with everyone, and it wasn't because they didn't want to win. They did want to win. But what Vince Lombardi realized is because they had lost their vision for what the game was, their understanding of the game, and they had gotten away from the very basics. And so the
Interesting.
first time he went into practice with them, he held up a football and he said to them, "Gentlemen, this is a football." Right? And he let them know that, okay, we're going to get back to the very, very basics of this game. We're not going to worry about all kinds of fancy plays and this and that and the other thing, and we're not going to let these losses get in our head. We're going to take this football and we're going to move it across the goal of our opponent. So, yeah, getting back to basics is critical,
Yeah,
extremely critical.
that's a great story to illustrate that.
Well, one of the things that we talked about, as we say, getting your financial stuff together, is being a business owner. So the whole concept
Yes.
of entrepreneurship, and that's kind of your area. Why don't you tell us what some of the basics are for entrepreneurship or for being a business owner as you see it?
Well, again, these go back to the very, very basics. And I have been asking many people who are strictly higher end business coaches and marketing coaches about this very first area, which has to do with, in order to be an entrepreneur and stay an entrepreneur, it has to do with being able to manage the discomfort of change, because we change more than anything. You know, the companies are a complete entity, but entrepreneurs, it's all about flexibility. It's all about change. And I think now it's more about change than ever. Mm-hmm. And every time we go to change, we're going to feel a little uncomfortable. That comfort level inside of us, status quo, is going to get all stirred up. Mm-hmm. So that's what everybody seems to agree, is that what creates that success and what creates people staying as an entrepreneur and enjoying that freedom is that they're able to manage that discomfort of change. Also seems to me that as I work with people, that an important component is finding a way to keep your eye on the prize, creating your own ruler, not using someone else's ruler, but creating your own. And this goes back to that getting out of the glaze, you know, getting out of the fog, and really coming to be very conscious about it, creating your own steps. And it's an important reason to create a marketing plan, I think, too. And then Covey's work is just as important now as it was when it first came out. I think there's really this idea, right? Would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. There's this idea of separating the important from the urgent. You know, the urgent is the phone ringing or the emails continuing to come, but it doesn't mean they're very important. The important work is that work you were just talking about, the branding, the arc. That's important. Taking time with that is important. Managing all the emails is important. The individual email may be urgent, but getting to the heart of that really important. Focusing on the necessary and the most important, and taking time to do that. And that requires an internal method.
Yeah.
So, and the method is different for different people.
Yeah,
I think
that matrix that Covey uses, where he talks about the urgent and the important and the not urgent and not important. And so often we live in that urgent and important, right? where it's much better for us to live in the quadrant that is not urgent but important, right?
Yes, that's how I found that's the only way to get out of putting out the fires syndrome. So many business people they're just like racing to put out the fires, dealing with the problem. I found that the only way you get out of that and into effectiveness is to more and more and more be present and care for the important that is not urgent but is very important when you say, when you plan for. So I think his work is just as monumental as any time in the past. You mentioned this in your arc, keeping the customer's needs and wants at top of everything, not what I think they should want or what I think they need, but what they think they want and what I have that may help them with the underlying need that they may or may not be aware of.
Right.
That's an important distinction, is that people may come in thinking of something they want. They probably have a need underneath. But if I'm trying to reach them by telling them what they should want or need, it's not going to happen. Yeah, it's not going to happen.
No, they tend to turn off and not follow your recommendations, and all sorts of negative things, and then you've got this bad sort of thing going, and then it's not fun for you or them. So keeping their needs and their wants in the forefront is very critical. Yep.
Right, and being awake to that. I have as my fifth point leadership. There's so much talk about leadership, and I think a lot of people think of leadership like people look up to me or admire me, and that's not how I see leadership. I really see leadership as a servant, as serving others, as a very internal property that people have. And so I only mention it because I look at it a little differently. I know we said 5, couple in each of these, but I want to bring up something I just found out about, actually, and I'm kind of enamored by the information. It's not my information. I didn't do the research, but a colleague did the research.
Okay.
And if I had to name names, Ronnie Noyes.
Yeah,
I would say Ronnie. She's the one who did the research. We both love Ronnie. Ronnie did some research about, I find this really interesting. She wanted to know why people give up and go back to a job. We're talking about entrepreneurship. That's why this is important. And so I was very curious. Why do people give up and go back to a job? There have been many times I've considered just going back to a job. There have been many times where I've picked up a little job here and there to kind of, keep floating. So I was really interested in what she had to say. She said her hypothesis was that it was self-discipline, that people who were able to make it as entrepreneurs were able to do what we were just talking about. They were able to circumvent the urgent and take care of the important, and it was a matter of discipline. But that's not what it turned out to be. You want to guess what it was, Sean?
Well, actually, I thought it was discipline.
I know, so did she. That's why this is so interesting.
What is it?
They did some research, and what they found out was that people who give up at their entrepreneurship, at their job they love, they do it because they don't have a structure. They don't have a type of structure, and you're talking about all these structures, but they don't have a type of structure that allows them to recognize and acknowledge the positive steps they've made. There's no way of having an internal recognition, so they feel like all they do is grind. That's what comes to that feeling. I just keep going and going, and nothing ever changes. Whereas in a job, they have sales, goals, and they award people, and they have deadlines, and those are all things that aren't self-imposed. They're outer-imposed. There's that structure.
Right.
So what she learned is that as a business person, as an entrepreneur, in order to be truly successful, and we're talking thriving here, we have to find not just that ruler, but we have to find that way, like you said, to celebrate our benchmarks.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have to have some kind of structure in place that lets us reevaluate, check in from time to time, and say, I did it, I made it, I succeeded. And so I was really interested in that. Isn't that curious?
That's awesome. So we should be having more parties, is what you're saying.
We should be having lots more parties, especially as entrepreneurs. We should be patting one another on the back and cheering each other, and absolutely. I think that's what it comes down to.
We should be celebrating. We should be celebrating our little wins as well as our big wins. So, yeah, absolutely.
I think so, because that's what we're saying, is that's what makes a difference in being able to be in there and not. The people who give up, they can't find a way to do this.
Well, Deborah, you know that I'm having a party on Sunday. Did you know that?
I know you are. I did know that. Jackie and I are coming together. I'm swinging by to pick her up, and we will see you. We will see you. Woo! Yeah. We will be celebrating. You bet.
We're going to have a launch party for the book that I wrote and got published, and we're also celebrating not just me, but we're celebrating small businesses and entrepreneurs themselves, because I think people need to have, just like you said, people need to have a time when we celebrate, we hit a milestone, we say, we did it. Now on to the next one.
Right. Yep. And I want you to know what that means too, Sean. This shows the regard I have for you, because I don't do anything for anybody on Sundays.
Whoa!
Sunday is my one and only day where I refuse to schedule anything. So I told Jackie, I said, well, I'll be there around whatever it is, 6 or 7 o'clock. I said no problem. That's right. That's right. That's right.
5.
That's right. Not just anybody, Sean. Not just anybody. Oh, is it 5? Okay.
It's at 5.
It'll be around. Okay, it'll be around 5. Okay. We won't be there early. I can guarantee you that.
Awesome. Well, I really am honored that you guys are going to show up. That's awesome. Thank you.
It'll be fun. It'll
and we're
be
going to be
fun.
celebrating. So, I mean, it's a big time celebration.
Yeah. That's what we need to do. We need more celebration. So that's kind of a fun way to start this next part. Is we're moving into the home track here, because we have to talk about this is an area that people who says I love sales? Some people, but not very many, and not usually very many solopreneurs say I love sales. They usually, sales is kind of a bane, right? So can you tell us what the basics of that are? What are the basic ABCs of sales?
Well, the first is, as I alluded to earlier, and when I talked about the customer relationship arc, it's important to understand that sales and marketing are not the same thing, right? So we put out our marketing material, and now people have an interest in learning more about who we are and what we do and how we can help them. That's when our sales processes kick in. And then the second thing that goes along with that is, because sales and marketing are different, we need to have different processes for sales, which means it's important for us to think about talking points, specific talking points, or even sometimes scripts, so that when somebody says, hey, I'm interested in buying your services or having you do this for me, then we don't have to make it up every time. We can think, okay, here's the process, here's how it works, right? You do this and this and this, and then I do this, and then you pay me, and then now we're on to business, right? So get your language right, so that your customers can hear you. Get your language
right. That's right. Because otherwise it's like you're speaking Japanese and they only understand French or something, right?
Exactly. You might be talking about something else, and all they're thinking is, yeah. How do I hire you? I need your help. I know I need your help. How do I hire you? And so we shouldn't be afraid to sell.
What? Don't make them work for it?
Don't make them work for it. Not by the time they get to the sale. Which brings me to the third piece, which is, don't be afraid to sell. Don't be afraid to sell to me. I work with a lot of health practitioners, and I was working with a personal trainer, arm muscles and running and that kind of thing. And I was helping her. I mean, I was giving her some sales training, and I said, well, how do you feel about sales? And she said, well, really, I don't want to be pushy. I kind of don't like to sell. I love to help people be more healthy and improve their life, but I don't want to sell. I don't really want to have that on my conscience. And I leaned over to her and I said, okay, let me just explain something to you. I'm a 54-year-old man. I have about 50 pounds more than I should on my body. If you don't sell your personal training services to me, I'm going to die. Now, how would you like that on your conscience?
Right.
I mean, people need what we have to offer, and I'll just go back to Michael Port. We have a moral obligation to offer it to them, and having a sales process actually helps them get what they need from us. Okay, so don't be afraid to sell.
Do you know, that concept has made more of a difference for me, maybe than anything else, that moral imperative.
Yes.
Not because my clients have as dramatic health imperative, in physical health imperative, although sometimes they do.
Yeah.
But I was raised, Sean, to think that trying to sell somebody something is rude or pushy or any of those things we associate. Yeah. And when you talk get your language straight, I think some of this is getting our internal languages straight and changing our concepts about how we speak to clients. We can find ways to speak to clients that are bold and honest and true, that aren't pushy or rude.
Right.
We're not chasing someone down, but if we step back and we are apologetic or we're not really very clear, then you're absolutely right. We're not connecting people with something that they may really, really benefit from.
Yeah, we're not doing them the service that we think we would like to provide to them.
Exactly. So important.
Well, as I think about, there are a couple of other things that are really important in the sales process, or in sales. This pertains to businesses that are more than one person. A lot of times, small businesses neglect to utilize the entirety of their sales force. Okay,
Say more
so
about that. What does that mean?
well, um, the way it works these days is that everybody in your organization actually has a role in the sales process. It used to
Brilliant.
be that there were people who were dedicated salespeople,
Right.
and they knew about the features and the benefits of your product. They had knowledge, right, that you didn't have as a customer, okay, as a consumer. And so you would go somewhere, and these people who had this knowledge would impart the knowledge to you and help you sell, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the internet's changed all that.
Yep.
It is not true anymore. Most of the time when people come to us, they've done their homework. They know how we differ from our competition. They've looked at the web, they've read books, they've done all sorts of things, whether they're buying a car or whether they're buying coaching, from you or me.
Mm-hmm.
They've already done their homework. And so everybody in your organization is actually a salesperson. From the person who,
Right.
let's say that you're a mattress store, right? Somebody's bought the mattress, you have some college kid deliver the mattress. Well, guess what? That person is also a salesperson.
True. That
Now,
is so true.
That person doesn't have to make sales, right? But that person has to represent you, because people are not just buying that mattress, they're buying you. They're buying what they get from that store. If they wanted a mattress, I'm sure they could go to Amazon and buy it online and get it delivered, overnight or whatever. But people...
Well, this is a really good point, Sean, and from an HR point of view, I will say I don't think enough companies really understand this. I don't think enough companies are training their people to understand that they stand between repeat sales and not.
Absolutely.
Or even beginning sales. Someone's impression, I can think of a couple different examples of pretty big name vendors that recently I've just thought, man, if this is what their people are saying to people, or if this is how they're treating people, why would you ever buy more of this company's product? Why would you?
I agree.
And I can remember back to a particular organization before it was the organization it was, but I was treated so badly that I still would never. I mean, that's what a deep impression. One person being as good and true of their word, or saying what's true, or really caring for someone, you can make such a positive difference, or you can make a really detrimental difference. You're absolutely right. That's huge. Well, and for me, I see that as a training issue.
Absolutely.
You have to create pride and ownership in the people in your company. Not choosing the cheapest person, but the person who actually is going to enjoy working there, who's going to be treated well. That goes back to a leadership issue too, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah. All of these things tend to intertwine.
Exactly.
Well,
origami.
The thing for small business owners to really understand, Deborah, is that some of those big vendors, those very large companies, and I think we all know, the kind of folks that you're talking about. They tell us they'll be here.
Every person's thinking of who that is for them in their mind right now. I know I am.
I will be there. We will have somebody out there between 9 o'clock on Monday and 4 o'clock on Friday.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so, and those big companies, they have the luxury oftentimes that they're the only option, right? And we can't really.
Oh, that's who I'm thinking of right there.
Yeah,
you nailed that.
Yeah, they're the only
the same person, same
we
company.
can't really go anywhere else. But here's why this is so critical to small businesses, because our customers have many, 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 many different options. They have so many other options that, you know, we better provide for them
Yeah,
excellent customer service, excellent everything, or they can go down the street or around the corner, or, you know, they'll go straight to our
right.
to somebody else who
Yeah.
won't take as good a care of them either.
Right.
So that's
Right.
why I'm so adamant about this, you know, helping everybody in your organization understand their role is as a salesperson.
Yeah.
Then I think
Brilliant.
the fifth thing that, and this kind of actually leads us into our final topic, but the thing that's another thing that's really important about sales is to have a system, have a sales system and a sales process. Have your scripts together. What are the first steps, the second steps, the third steps? What do you do? And help because you're helping the customer at that point really buy your services or your goods. And systems make all the difference. And you know that, and I know that. And it doesn't mean that I follow it all the time.
Doesn't mean you have to like it all the time, right?
I have some systems in my and processes in my own personal business that I am reevaluating because they're not working
I
effectively.
finally have a procedure manual. For the
Yeah,
first
so
time in my business life, I finally have a procedure manual.
awesome.
I had such resistance to it, and this was such a difficult concept for me to get, was this concept of systems. It's such an abstract concept to my verbal relating, you know, sensibility. But
Yes.
I really get what you're saying, Sean. I really get, I want to encourage people to listen to this last part about systems, operations, procedures, because I think it's helping me take care of the important things. I think it's helping me make forward movement in my business. I think it's helping me serve people better for just what you were talking about.
Yeah.
And it is hard. It's not my favorite, but the payoff is huge, though. That's the thing. The payoff is huge.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. That's sort of the fifth thing out of 5 things to get your business stuff together. The fifth thing is this systems and processes. So tell us, how did you go about writing your operations manual? How did you do that?
Well, thanks, Sean. Well, 2 things. You know, we talked about that having systems in place. There's things internally that I need to get in place. You know, I need to get my head straight. I need to get things lined up so they make, for me, they need to make auditory digital. They need to make sense for me.
Okay.
So I hadn't really put those things together that, you know, important, sales, service, customer, stay in business, do what I love, you know, be of service to others. When I finally started kind of getting that lined up, I really realized that that was a part that was creating a what do they call it, bottleneck?
Yeah.
The bottleneck was me. The bottleneck was every time I went to go do something, participate in a summit, create a new class, I had to reinvent it. I couldn't remember from the last time I did it. And not only that, but I started wanting to tackle the issues I had with delegating. Being raised to take care of everything on my own. Do you have other business people, other business owners who try to do everything themselves? Yeah. Okay. Right. So right.
Yeah.
But as a marketing business coach, don't you help people understand areas that aren't their forte that they can delegate? Isn't that an important thing?
Yeah, actually, it tends to be easier in marketing because there are certain pieces to marketing that most people just don't have the chops for, like developing graphic designs or, you know, taking professional pictures. So it's a lot, or even writing your content for your website.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to convince people that they need to not do it themselves and go get help because they just don't even know where to start. So
well, you would have really had to
absolutely.
twist my arm. That's what I'm saying. You would have had to really twist my arm, and I've been twisting my own arm for a long time. And I finally got to the point where I said, I am going to do this because I want to be in business more than I want to hold on to my old conditioning.
Yeah.
I was able to see that this was a part of my business that I was hurting myself by trying to do everything all the time. perfectly.
That's smart. That is so smart.
Yeah. And so now what I do is I figured out my own method, which is I take out the checklist for how to do something, and I go by the checklist. And if I'm not following the checklist, I make the change, I print it out. Then the next time I take the checklist to my VA, and we go through the checklist as he takes care of things. And if his is a little bit different, I change it again. And then it goes back in the procedure manual.
So what is, you just used the term VA. I know what that means, but
virtual assistant. Virtual assistant.
Well, how did you find a virtual assistant? Where did you find this person?
Well, I found someone that my daughter's 20 years old. She's got friends.
Okay.
I found someone young,
yeah.
which felt a little more like family and a little more comfortable to me, right? But I know there's some other resources if people do want to know, or if you want to know. I have someone's recommended a couple of virtual assistant ways to. I can't remember the one that was last referred to me. I think it's called Virtual Assistants or Us. It's not called that at all, but it's something like that. Virtualassistants.com.
I've heard of a couple of others. Zirtual, virtual with a Z, Zirtual.
Oh, interesting.
And, some others, and what we can put in this.
Yeah, we can do that because I have a couple. I have a couple for that. And maybe if we remember, let's put a couple guides to that too, because basically there's just a couple of how-tos to that I've heard from people who are more experienced. You know, they say give people something small at first, which is what I took that advice. I started with smaller things and then check. And you're building a relationship with that person too. And then realize going into it that you're going to take more time at first training someone, and then you'll save the time. That helped me too, to know what my expectations, manage my expectations. But that's really what happened for me, is I really started seeing that I needed to do things in my business that really made my business real. That was the only way I was going to crawl up out of living paycheck to paycheck, month to month, was to have a marketing plan, was to do the truly important things, was to be able to, you know, I don't know who it was, but what strikes me right this minute, Sean, is that the idea of having an exit plan. So that's what most people do for businesses that they're investing in and growing, and then they sell. But I'm 50-something myself, and I started thinking, how would I run my business differently if I was creating it so I had an exit plan? And that's really that question has helped me create some systems, actually. So I don't know if that's the kind of thing you would help people do, but I'm kind of thinking it is, isn't it?
Well, absolutely, and that goes back to your Stephen Covey stuff. One of his 7 habits is begin with the end in mind, and absolutely, we encourage people to think about, even if you're not going to ever sell your business, but think about putting systems and processes in place as if you were going to sell your business.
Exactly.
Even if you're not hiring anybody, you don't ever plan on hiring anybody, put systems and processes into place. It as if you were going to potentially hire somebody.
You may have been the person who told me that, Sean. That may have been you who told me that. So thank you.
Well, whoever told you that was brilliant. Brilliant, I tell you.
You did, because I went out and did it. I was inspired. I'm working on it now.
Yay. Well, one of the things that I wanted to say about systems and processes is, because this can be a daunting task, I do have some tools that I use to help people, but it doesn't need to be daunting. There are certain processes that are important if you're working in the business. So if you're manufacturing a product, or if you're delivering a specific service, right? If you're an acupuncturist, or if you're a naturopath, I work with a lot of those folks. You know, there are certain ways that you do things as you are working, just in your work, right? Certain ways you put the needles, and certain ways you do all this stuff. Most of us know that, but we haven't actually written down the processes for that. So that would be the place that I would encourage people to start, is, you know, write down the stuff that you know. And then the second place is to think about, there are actually also processes that will help us run the business, and they run all through every aspect of the business, right? So a process like financials, you know, understanding your financial procedures, That's something that goes from the very beginning of your business through every single aspect of your business. Or human resources. If you actually hire somebody, or even if you don't hire somebody, chances are you contract with somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are
Mm-hmm.
you want to have certain procedures in place. Okay, how do I go about finding a contractor? You know,
Mm-hmm.
what's my criteria? How do I do it? You know, all of that. So yeah, I mean, it's critical to it's critical to have those systems and procedures in place.
I think coming up with a reason to make these different areas more sexy to yourself, you know, give yourself a reason to embrace systems and operations. Give
Yes.
yourself a reason to embrace sales. Give yourself a reason to embrace marketing. Give yourself a reason to embrace, financial and tax and all those things.
Right.
And take the time to find what aligns for you. That's been very valuable for me, is to align it so I know exactly why I'm doing it, not trying
Yes.
to force it or push it, but going there willingly because, like you said, I understand what the end is I'm going for. I think that's really important.
And as we've said throughout our conversation today, having systems and processes in place for each one of these things actually allow us to serve our customers better. You know, so
Yes.
we don't have to reinvent the wheel
Yes.
every time somebody says, you know, how do I hire you? Well, here's the steps. This is
Yes.
what you do.
Yes. Boy, you're reminding me now. I've made some hard decisions about some of the way I handle some things in my business. They were hard for me because quite frankly, to be honest with you, I was being kind of sloppy. I was just kind of being in the moment about things, right?
Yep.
But now that I'm taking this part of my business so seriously, I'm being taken much more seriously by people in the world. And I
Absolutely.
really see that. I'm guessing you see that in a lot of people, in a lot of practices. Do you see that with a lot of
Absolutely.
your
I,
careers?
I see it
Yeah.
all over the place. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it a lot of times people will let their customers or their clients run their business. You know,
Oh, that was me.
dic-
That was me.
dictate how things go because I don't have the systems in place. I don't have the processes. So, oh, there's money over there. That'll help me pay the bills. I'll go take care of that. Or oh, there's. So we have to put those into place and take control for ourselves because otherwise people are going to take it from us. So,
Well, that was me. I had the best intentions, Sean. I really wanted people to feel like they had choice. But what I'm realizing now is that, just like with children, if you give them infinite choice, then you're not creating a structure that feels very safe. They don't
right.
feel like really held by you. And
Right.
if you're very clear with people, they feel very secure. I'm really noticing this. So it's
And
okay. I didn't quite. This is where we get into self-forgiveness, right? I didn't have it quite right. I still don't have it quite right. Maybe we never have it quite right, but we can keep moving in that direction.
well, it also gives them a chance to say no, thank you. Um, you're not the right fit for me. And trust me, you would much rather work with people who are the right fit. fit.
No kidding.
So,
Oh my goodness. I'll bet people can relate to that. Hey, Sean, let's
well,
wrap up.
Deborah,
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead. You have a
I was just
phone
going to
call.
say thanks for taking the time today to record this and have fun on this little
It's totally
program that we
fun.
did together. Yeah,
Yeah, totally fun. We got to do it again. We do
let's
it on
do it
regular.
again.
It is fun. Yeah, let's do it again. Well, before you go, I want you to say your name and Best Little Marketing Plan and how people can find you and learn more about Best Little Marketing Plan. Because really, the Best Little Marketing Plan kind of outlines what we've talked about, but in a way people can really get started and use it, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, my name is Sean Harry, and you can find me through my website, drseanharry.com. No spaces, no dots, anything like that. So drseanharry.com, drseanharry.com. And the book that I just had published is called The Best Little Marketing Plan, and it really is a simple, easy to put to use, and also very effective tool for small business owners.
Yeah.
So
It's a
tell us
primer.
how we can get in touch with you, Deborah. How can we get in touch
Oh,
with you?
thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sean. Well, again, I'm Deborah Ivanoff, Emotional Rebalance Coach, answeringthesacred.com. So it's answeringthesacred.com. You can find me there at my website. And there's contact sheets and various things, lots of events that are going on. I speak. And I know you speak too, don't you, Sean, in the area? I've heard you speak.
A lot.
So, yeah, so get in touch with us on our website, see what else is going on, and I don't know, Google us and do all those fun things so you know when we've got another broadcast going, and we'll have another time to play. And I'll see you this weekend as we woohoo celebrate the book.
Celebrate. Thank you, Deborah.
Celebrate.
I will talk to you later.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Sean. Bye now.
Bye-bye.